All right, everyone, we are live with the Hockey Collectors Roundtable. We got a fresh cast of guys on tonight, three of which are making their debut on the show. And today's topic, we're keeping it pretty broad. We're going to be talking about the future of hockey cards. So that can go in a lot of different directions. So excited to see, where it goes. So let's just kind of start off by going around, everyone introduce themselves, and then from there we'll start talking about it. Ezra, you want to go first?
Yeah, hey Mitch, nice to see you. I'm Ezra. I'm an attorney by day and a hockey card nut in the evening. It's nice to see everyone on the show.
David?
Yeah, so I'm David. Nice to see all you guys and meet new people. I'm from New Jersey. Mostly collect Rangers, but my two main collections are Brian Leach from the past and Capo from now. So some others, but those are the main two.
Robbie?
Hi, Robbie from Pittsburgh, Penguins fan. Almost all my hockey collecting experiences with Penguins, mainly driven through Sidney Crosby, which I've enjoyed collecting a lot.
Awesome. And then Al's back.
Yep. Hi, everybody. My name's Al. My two main PCs are Aginla and Iserman. I've been collecting hockey cards since about 1988. And just starting to spread out a little bit. Both my players are retired, so cards are kind of few now, so I'm spreading out into other areas.
And then if you guys don't know me, I'm Mitch. I've been collecting for about 23 years. My dad owned a distributor in a card shop, so I was kind of born into the hobby. And I'm a big Panthers fan and a very, very obsessive hockey collector now. Want to give a shout out to Name, a longtime supporter of the show. He's in here. What's going on? All right, so now we got the intros. Let's just kind of hop into it. I think right now the big thing as it pertains to the future of hockey cards, a lot of people are wondering with Fanatics taking a license for the other big three sports. What would that look like, now that they have the NHL jersey license? There's a lot of smoke in the air that whenever Upper Deck's license is up, that Fanatics is going to be at the doorstep kind of waiting to scoop that up. So what do you guys think about that? Whoever wants to take that on.
I think if they did, I personally don't think that is going to happen. I don't know. I think Upper Deck has kind of held on to all their stuff the way they've held on to in other sports, for example, we can see like they've held the license for Tiger autographs, MJ autos, LeBron autos. They've held all that stuff to just hang around in the business. I don't know. I think any talk of Fanatics acquiring Upper Deck is probably driven by people saying like exquisite basketball or exquisite football. And then I feel like, I don't know, the hockey's a smaller market, may just be a byproduct of that type of a transaction. But I think Upper Deck is here to stay. And to be honest, I would like it that way too.
My question is, does the NHL Players Association have the ability to give a license to two people at the same time? Because if they look at the landscape and they see, okay, the other three sports are covered by Fanatics, shouldn't we jump into that ship as well, and we'll still keep our loyalty to Upper Deck?
Yeah, so I mean, we've seen the NHLPA give another company the license since Upper Deck originally got the exclusive in 05-06. They had Panini from 10-11 until 13-14. So I guess we know that they have at least the ability to do that. I'm not sure what would be in the PA's best interest. I mean, now we know with the jersey contract that they at least have a relationship with Fanatics. So you got to think if you're Fanatics, you're going to be pounding at the door, to get a slice of that pie. So it is a very interesting thing to think of, if we can kind of go back to those days of having two licensed hockey card companies. I don't know how many of you guys were collecting during that period. I know I was. And I don't know if, Ali, if you have the same kind of memory of it, but I think when Panini kind of got into the fray, there was sort of a negative connotation to their cards when they came out, as compared to Upper Deck cards. I don't know if that's your memory of it as well. I think people thought they were just a little bit cheaper. But, I think people didn't like that you couldn't get Wayne Gretzky autographs, where you could in Upper Deck products. Is that your recollection as well?
Not for me personally, but I mean, I don't consider myself a mainstream collector. I mean, I'm so specialized. I don't look at the bigger picture all the time. I think too, you can sort of say that memories of Panini grow fonder with age, right? So maybe, like you were saying, it wasn't the best connection at the beginning, but now you talk to people and, like National Treasures, Prime, Dominion, all of those brands. And I've got quite a few Ginla cards in there, and I love them all.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
mean, I think. Oh, go ahead.
Oh no. I mean, I think it's interesting that you talked about kind of how the perception might have been negative when they jumped in. I want to take a step back even further to the 90s. I mean, we had 4, upwards of 5, sometimes competing brands putting out product. We would have years where you'd have major releases, upwards of 5, 6 major releases from 5 or 6 companies for a total of 30. And I think that's really what the hobby needs at this point in time. I don't care if the license goes to Fanatics. If we're going to just jump from one monopoly to another, I think the collector is going to get screwed. And we're going to be in the same position where we are today, which is not loving the quality control, having tons of gripes about distribution, having major concerns about releases and the integrity of those releases. I think what this hobby really needs is some fresh competition. And I'd love to see a world where the NHL and the NHLPA open the doors back up and we can see, maybe it's letting Leaf jump in here. Maybe it's letting President's Choice jump in here, seeing who else wants to get involved and start releasing product, because nothing would make me happier, and I know a ton of collectors happier, than having the ability to really force Upper Deck to do a better job and to try harder to get our hard-earned money as we buy hockey cards.
Yeah, I feel like going off that, it's always hard to know from their side whether they're viewing their, continued pushbacks of all their releases. Everything's getting delayed and, quality issues and stuff. If they're from their side saying we're failing to some degree, or if they're not really seeing it as an issue because they're still, getting all the money that they're expecting to get just at different times. And then looking at another company, if they could be in the good graces of the collectors, if that could outweigh it, I don't know how to exactly put it, but just whether they can kind of use the collectors' gripes against Upper Deck, or if they would also be kind of in the similar mindset of sure, you have these gripes, but you might have them with us too.
Mm-hmm.
I think one other thing that I think of too, with competition and having another company into the mix, I think it's a great benefit for the local card stores. I mean, you look at SB Signature Legends that came out fairly recently. We've got, I think, 5 card stores here in Calgary, but within about a week to 10 days, I was seeing item out of stock on their websites. And so, if they can get another company that's supplying them and keep items on the shelf, that's going to help their bottom line too.
Yeah, I love that you bring up the local card store, Al. You're in Canada, so I think you guys see it firsthand. But Upper Deck plays real hardball with local card shops. They've actually have a standard practice where they'll go in and threaten shops if they bring in competitors' products, oftentimes. And we have a couple of card shops out here in the Portland area who had their distribution pulled because of some misunderstanding around whether or not product was being offered for sale digitally, which Upper Deck prohibits for most of its distributors. The card shops, in my opinion, being a kid of the 90s, are the lifeblood of the hobby, right? And that's where you get to go in with somebody, you can rip packs, you can build community, you can sift through dollar bins if that's your thing, or bring your kids in so they can explore. And I think competition would not only be great for the collector, drive down prices, breed new designs and interesting cards, but it'll also ensure that the local card shops can continue to thrive and not be stuck in a monopolistic relationship.
I was talking to a good friend of mine in Finland, Tattoo, and he's in the know. I mean, he's quite involved with hockey world over there. He was telling me, to his knowledge, there's only one brick and mortar card store in Finland, which I found to be an amazing stat. He said in the 90s they were all over the place,
Really?
but now you can't find them.
I think it's similar with the Czech Republic. It's similar with a lot of hockey hotbeds in Europe. They've totally gone away.
Yeah, I know, at least personally, my dad owned a large distributor, and then he owned a card store. And I mean, and that was in the 90s. And to this day, he attributes a lot of his failures. The reason he's not in it anymore is he just felt like he couldn't compete with the eBay and the online shops. And it just kind of took him out of it. And it seems like that's really the case for a lot of the hobby. Where a lot of the stores, had to close once the online world of collecting kind of took over. And then, I think also, Upper Deck being so restrictive with, what they can sell online, if you're not an authorized internet retailer, if you have a product, you can't sell it online, or at least list a price of it, which, what other store they can't sell their product online,
The stores up here in Calgary, they have a disclaimer at the bottom. They can't sell it for a year. It has to have been released for 1 year before they can sell it out of the country.
Yeah, it's like buying cars in Russia under Soviet times, right? It's like, hey, you can all get the one car, and I guarantee it's going to be a subpar vehicle. Let's get some competition back in. So to answer your point, to respond to your question, Mitch, if Fanatics gets in and we get a second card manufacturer, I think we'll be on firm footing. I think it'll be a great sign. If it's Fanatic getting an exclusive license and Upper Deck exiting, I think we'll be in a similar or worse position than we are today.
Yeah. I mean, Mitch and Al, you might be able to answer this better. I'm just thinking back to the best part to me about new competition would probably be holding Upper Deck to actually stick to their deadlines and have good quality control and stuff like that. So I'm wondering, if you look back to, when Panini was in, was there any better? Did Upper Deck get better because they had competition, and then, they got kind of lazy as the years have gone on? I'm curious if maybe someone comes in and then Upper Deck says, okay, we got to get our stuff together, and then they improve and they eventually become the sole company again.
I think it's, sorry, Mitch, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, one thing I do remember from that time that Upper Deck did that I really wish they would do more of, and you guys might know this just from kind of knowing the checklists and the history of them, is that during that time, Upper Deck added so many big names to their autograph portfolio that they did not have previous to that. Or maybe they did before the lockout, but there are so many big names in the hobby that have cards that were signed during Panini's run to stay competitive. So guys like Peter Forsberg, Eric Lindros, Matt Sundin, all Pavel Bure, all these really big 90s names, Upper Deck added to their autograph portfolio during this time that Panini was in the space with the license. So, you can say, would they have done that anyway? I don't know, because they didn't really add that many big names before Panini got in, or at least names that they didn't already have. So in my opinion, I think a lot of that was to stay competitive, was getting a lot of those big names to sign cards. And in my opinion, they haven't really added that many big names in the last 5-10 years that they don't have in their autograph portfolio. And a lot of those names that signed at that time are no longer signing for Upper Deck.
Yeah, awesome point. And what about the early 90s? I mean, UD came on the scene and was innovating like crazy. A lot of the designs that we love, and innovations that we love, whether it's holograms, jersey cards,
Young Guns.
certain insert sets, Young Guns. A lot of this stuff came about because UD was in a competitive environment, was forced to innovate. I'm sitting next to me here, and I have some of the first jersey cards that UD issued in 1996. That was mind blowing at the time, and so dope that they were able to take that step forward. But they're not under the same type of pressure that they were back then, because they're not in the competitive landscape. And I think there's a certain atrophy that sets in if you're not forced to stay hungry every year and keep innovating to get the collector's dollars.
Yeah. I want to touch on what the Central Credentials here in the chat said about the Panini. Talked about how the Panini era cards. I don't know about other people. I know, Al, you mentioned that you look on them highly.
Mm-hmm.
I think I like some of those Panini cards from that period more than the Upper Deck cards. I feel like there's some all-time type designs. The Buried Treasures, I mean, are beautiful. I made a post on my story about that not that long ago. I think that's one of the best designs ever made, and it dumbfounds me to this day that Panini made that good of a design and then never used it in football or basketball. But Panini really did a good job. There's other stuff too. I just love those acetate cards that they put out. The shadow box patch autos, those vertical ones. I think it's 13 is what that year is. I don't even like shadow box autos, and I like that. I think Dominion, like you said, Al, too, just some great patches. I don't know. I find myself more and more. It's tough to get your hands on it because that stuff, doesn't circulate that much just because of its age. It's being 10 years at least old now. But that's the stuff I find in my eBay saved searches, what I'm hoping to find.
Yeah, Prime and Dominion for me were top of the heap. You look at the size of some of the patches, like those Prime colors, Prime numbers, the ones I mean. I've got a Prime colors, I think it is, of Aginla from Boston, and it's actually big enough to show the whole bear in the patch.
Yeah. So
I know which patches you mean. Those vertical style patches, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, those are great.
Yeah, even I'm in a semi-unique position that I collect Kako that I've had the last few years, and they still have that. Like I have basically it's an entire A from the Ranger. I mean, I know it's not like really licensed, but yeah, I mean, you just don't have really cards like that.
Yeah, definitely a lot of amazing designs that we got from that era. I do want to go to a few comments. We got quite a few since I last went to them. So Matt's in the house. Tomcat Sports Cards is kind of his show. So I'm trying to do my best to fill his shoes hosting it. He says, having two companies making hockey cards would be ideal for collectors at least. Competition breeds ingenuity. Imagine the set/designs we would get if two companies were making cards a la Panini. Absolutely. We got Calvin in the house, collects. We got Carl Langer. He says, I think that Leaf is gone. Fanatics bought them here. Have you guys heard this? That Fanatics bought Leaf? I haven't heard that. So maybe that's in the works. I feel like we would know if that was a done deal. I haven't heard that at least. Then he goes on to say he can't find news on it. He must be mistaken. So I haven't heard that. I am on record as being a critic of Fanatics, to say the least, or not Fanatics, Leaf. So it'd be interesting to see if they got bought. We got Reed in the house. Case it's Reed on Instagram. He says Upper Deck's designs when they had to compete with Panini were generally excellent in my opinion. Competition breeds good products. So that kind of goes in line with what we were all saying. He also went on to say that he's shocked that there isn't a Buried Treasure Lombardi trophy, and that would be an amazing card. Do that with the Naismith Memorial Trophy. It would be really cool in basketball cards. We got Jeff McMahon in the house, longtime supporter of the show. We got Jeremy in the house. He says, fake news. I'm assuming this is in response to Leaf getting bought by Fanatics. Yeah, I haven't heard that either. I'm pretty sure that's not true as far as I know. So does anyone have anything else they want to add about Fanatics? Okay, so let's talk about group breaks. There's a lot of conversation about how group breaks might be shaping the way that Upper Deck creates products these days. Recently, they've really condensed the number of packs that they put in products, specifically SP Authentic. We know that they're going to start putting fewer packs into their flagship product. And a lot of that has to do with feedback from group breakers, where the breaks just take a lot longer, having to rip through so many packs. For a long time, they were 24 packs. And then those of us that have been collecting for a long time remember 36 pack boxes. So, we've already kind of, gone the way of, quicker breaks. I think a lot of people generally seem to like them. Obviously, the concerns come from, a kid, it becomes harder to go into a store and buy a pack for $4. If, there's fewer packs, the price of each pack is going to go up. I remember when, Upper Deck released Premiere, and that was 4 packs in a box. And I believe at the time that was the fewest packs that they ever put in a product. And then they continued that into Ultimate. But what do you guys think of that? How much is group breaking shaping the future of how Upper Deck is making their products? Is that a good thing, a bad thing?
Well, it's giving us some nice differentiation, right? I mean, I think, and again, when you have a monopoly, many of their products are competing against each other. And so I think it's incumbent on UD to really make products for different end users. I think it's nice that you can still have plentiful packs in an MVP or an OPG and still pull some awesome inserts, right? Some really great ROI on that stuff, but it can also be a fun rip, for kids, for adults, whoever enjoys kind of digging into that stuff. At the same time, the kind of group break driven production, I think, helps on 2 fronts. One, it's a great cost entry for a lot of people, right? I may not have the dollars or really the desire to go buy a box of the cup, but I may be like Al, super passionate about 1 or 2 individuals who are in that in the product, and I may be interested in buying into a group break there. And I think too, it brings a lot of cards to market that we probably otherwise wouldn't see. So if you take a look at, and I'm sure the pandemic had a lot to do with this, obviously the various platforms that have sprung up to help people sell cards have had a lot to do with this, but group breaking brings a lot of cards to the surface that folks may not be interested in. And it oftentimes provides a channel for them to then sell those cards, right? So you have a lot of group breakers who then will go ahead and help you list those cards. Those cards are getting open so other people are seeing them. And then maybe kind of reaching out to you or giving you a channel to then go and sell those cards or get them to people who might be interested. And so I love that for a ton of products, I think the end users or the hobby enthusiasts are getting access to a lot of cards that they wouldn't otherwise see or get a chance to possibly purchase or trade for if somebody was just opening a box in their living room and doing so privately.
I agree with all that. I think that there's definitely a lot of upsides to the group breaking for a lot of the reasons you just said, Ezra. One of my only cautions and stuff that worries me about as we creep towards the group breaking world is that I feel like you end up getting you can really lose some creativity in the products from the manufacturer side. You could get something that resembles, the cup, I think, still has a lot of creativity, still has a lot of good subsets, still is a well-rounded product, but what you don't want is to end up with something closer to a national treasures in basketball or football, where you get a stale product with one big hit per box that you end up being a group break like Haven just because of the potential ROI off one card and the other X cards in the box are trash. I think Upper Deck has maintained their integrity in that regard as we've moved into a more group break centric world, but that is my one concern on that front.
What do you guys think about? There is kind of this, overarching sentiment in the hobby right now that a lot of what has sparked box prices going way up, and I mean like 2 to 3 to 4 times as much as they used to cost. A lot of people attribute that to group breaking, and a lot of people see that as a negative to group breaking being so pervasive in the hobby. What do you guys think about that sentiment?
I mean, I think there's a certain. Oh, go ahead, man.
Oh, I was just gonna say that I don't know. I think it's warranted, right? If there's that much interest for the product, for the price to go up, that doesn't mean that I personally as a collector like watching the price go up. It doesn't mean that I like it being harder and harder for people to rip boxes, because I don't know. I think ripping boxes and ripping packs, as Ezra you've alluded to, I mean, it's foundational to the hobby, and I don't like to see those prices creep up for that reason. But I don't know. It is warranted if people are buying it.
Honestly, I think it may be a little bit misplaced. I mean, we had a ton of supply chain issues in pretty much every industry, right? Coming out of the pandemic, I worked primarily in home building, and the spikes that we saw across the board in all sorts of materials were unprecedented, and they had everything to do with the fact that factories were getting decommissioned, supply chains were getting generally disrupted, right? I mean, we had that fun in the Suez Canal getting blocked. We have a land war in Europe. We have all sorts of factors that are leading to disruption in supply chains, and cards are no exception, right? A lot of these cards that we love to open are printed in Europe and have to be transported over here. So the cost of fuel is impacting the price of cards that we pay to rip, and that has absolutely nothing to do with group breakers. At the same time, the pandemic has seen an increase in enthusiasm for the hobby. So you have supply staying stagnant, but you have demand increasing, which means that you're going to see natural increases in prices just driven by that basic imbalance. And so I think there are a lot of factors well outside of group breaking that are leading to price increases, but it's easy for a collector to hop on their phone, right? See a video of somebody ripping a bunch of boxes and say, oh, well, there's the culprit, right? That person's opening 20 boxes. That's why the cost of the box in my LCS is 2x.
I think for myself as a collector, I don't participate in case breaks myself, but I can see the value of them because, like Ezra had said earlier, probably out of the last 10 cards, like big cards that I've bought, 6 out of those 10 have come from case breaks, and people that I know on Instagram or Facebook have either offered them to me personally or put them into a sale thread. Would I want to be going into all these breaks and taking all those chances? No, but I still get the benefit of it because they're coming to me after they've acquired the cards.
Yeah, I overall would obviously there are issues within that landscape, but I think as a whole it's been a positive. Like all you guys said, it's brought so many more cards in, and also just, I mean, I think we'd all like to open more boxes, and just being able to watch all the products being open, and it gives you a better sense of how the layout of the boxes are. And I'm certainly watched plenty of breaks and been like, oh, like I don't like that correlation, or I don't think it's worth it. But you get to see more and more boxes being opened. And I think that, depending on where you go, and there are so many breakers now, and there are so many that are well known and they offer competitive pricing. Whereas I think if you look at 2020, when a lot of people were trying to individually get into breaking and they were kind of gouging prices, and like if you were to add up all the teams, you're like, wow, they're making twice as much as the product is worth on this. But I mean, even that, it's like, it's your responsibility to kind of look into that stuff when you're buying into the breaks to say, am I getting value here? Should I be paying this price? So I think it kind of falls on the collector, as long as obviously they're open with all that information and stuff.
Yeah. David, I like your point about how you can kind of see the product. I think it helps me, the collector who maybe doesn't rip that many boxes, kind of understand what products are like, which products are really well made. And like, I don't know, it's kind of fun for me to be able to enjoy it that way. Also, the patch collector in me really enjoys group breaks if notable patch cards are pulled from a patch authenticity standpoint. Never hurts having that much. There's tons of video out there of patch cards being pulled. not saying it's easy to track yours down, but if you're in a situation like Al was, where there's a specific break, someone offers you a card from it. Yeah, that's nice to have as a patch collector, because that's always kind of the lingering concern in the back of your mind.
I'm sure Mitch likes that. Mitch is the king of hunting down fake patches.
Yeah, I try my best. It's and we can talk about this too. I mean, patch faking, I think, is one of the biggest unresolved issues, at least in hockey, where the patches are a lot more colorful and intricate than in other sports. And then with Connor Bedard going to Chicago, that's going to be, I know right after the lottery, I posted a thing on my story saying Upper Deck needs to post a picture of every single Connor Bedard patch at release, because I think, for those that don't remember, when 07-08 products came out, I think, at least for me, as far as I can remember, that was really the peak, even to this day, of seeing fake patches with Jonathan Toews and Patrick Kane rookie cards.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, we were seeing, almost every week we were seeing just new fake patches. There was one guy in particular that seemed to be faking hundreds of patches, but we really saw an absolute, just trove of fake patches coming out with Kane and Taves. So I'm really hoping that Upper Deck does something. I know they've posted a lot more cards in the last few years to their previews of the products. So I really hope that at least like in the cup, all 99 true RPAs are posted, that kind of thing. So, that's a huge concern for me as someone who predominantly collects patches.
Yeah, I know it's a logistical nightmare. Obviously, I think we all understand that, but I do wonder if that will be part of the future. Is more, what's the word? More just like every transparency, exactly. And with everything being easier to digitize now, if they can just very easily, when they're putting it together, have all of them basically in a sheet, and then there's just a picture, and you could see every single one. I wonder if with Fanatics coming in, and maybe they have plans to do something like that in the other sports, and then that could transfer over to hockey.
I'd like to see Fanatics, if they did enter this market. They have a lot of good relationships with the other major American sports leagues. I would be really, really interested to see if they could kind of leverage those relationships or build a relationship like that with the NHL to get those authenticity stickers that have been used in baseball, say, in the past. It's a 6 or 7 digit code. You can look it up, shows you the game that jersey was worn, or at least if it's worn for multiple games, a game that it was worn in. You can look up your player's stats. I would love to see that. So that, I don't know, it kind of circles back towards the first point, but just another way to add to the patches.
Yeah, I think. Oh,
sorry.
Go ahead.
I don't know if you remember this. I mean, this has been a discussion for a long, long time, right? There's got to be the willpower by the companies to do something. But I remember, I think it was back in 2009, where Jeremy went to the pack out and took pictures of each and every patch card that came off the line.
Yeah,
I mean,
for the cup.
It's been a discussion since who knows how long now, and nothing's really moved.
Yeah, I think, after that, we kind of felt like we stopped seeing as many patch swaps. And then I think the hobby just kind of forgot about it. I know last year we kind of had that scandal with all the Jason Robertson and Jake Ottinger patches that were getting faked. And I think that really reawakened the discussion for a lot of people, especially a lot of the new collectors that weren't collecting at that time and weren't aware of how big of an issue patch swapping was. But I'm not sure, what we as collectors can do to actually, hold the companies liable to do something. Because as far as I can tell, they outside of taking a picture of a few cards for the product previews, there's really, from my perspective, I have not noticed any actions taken to prevent patch swapping.
Yeah, it's a real shame, Mitch. I mean, we're talking card prices now where, I would expect to see Connor Bedard early stuff going for tens, if not tens of thousands of dollars, right? I mean, we're talking essentially about medium price pieces of art here. And the authenticity of that product is questionable at best, right? We can't rely on third-party authenticators, right? Time and time again, we'll see PSA, BGS, slab, all sorts of things that have been altered in one way, shape, or form. And the onus shouldn't be on a third party. We have the producer here who has a monopoly. The technology is readily available. We're not talking about anything particularly high tech here, but high res scans of several thousand pieces of cardboard that are coming off a printing press and being assembled with patches. This is something that can easily be done, and I think you talk about what's going to hold these producers' feet to the fire. I wouldn't be surprised if there's some litigation, right? I mean, what you're going to have here are people paying significant amounts of money for things that are going to come out being, and there's going to be clear. It's going to be clear that they're going to be fraudulent. And at the end of the day, Upper Deck's going to get dragged into the litigation. They may not be liable for it, but their good name is going to start getting dragged through the mud, and collectors are going to be putting it out there in the public realm that, hey, this product that we're shelling out mortgage payments for, we can't verify whether or not it is in fact what we believe it is. And I think all it takes is one mildly high profile litigation with a couple of pieces being written about it, and now Upper Deck will finally get their act together and start producing high res scans of the high end cars that we all love so much.
Yeah. And to your point, which is what I was going to say, is like, I guess on paper, from their point, they're not really liable for other people changing their cards. But then from our point of view, we can't really do anything about it, right? To Mitch's point, you could take pictures for a few cards, and even if you put in all the man hours to track them for the hobby, it's like it's really, they're the only ones that can fix it, right?
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I just want to go to a couple comments. We have Alex in the house, longtime supporter of the show. And name had to also say hi in all caps. Reese said, this is going, we're a little behind on the comments. So he said, as long as the lessening of number of packs doesn't diminish the amount of hits you receive in the box, it's generally beneficial. I'd agree with that.
The one thing I meant to say before, and the other thing I didn't mention to you guys, is that my big collection that spanned the last, I guess, since 2014 is the OPG Platinum Red Prism set that I do every year. And that's the one product that's seeing a big change come. They've completely restructured the format of it. And it aligns with one of the Panini, either Prism or Select, where it's like every pack is more regimented, where you're going to get X amount of base cards, one parallel, one retro, stuff like that, one number card. And whenever it gets released, very interested to see how that changes and how that's received. And to your guys' point before about breaks, I'm interested if that changes that as well.
Yeah, I'm very curious to see what the future of OPG Platinum looks like. I know last year I did a poll on my Instagram story where I just, it was just a yes or no every single product of Upper Deck makes. Do you like this product? OPG Platinum had the highest responses of yes. So, I think that's one that the hobby seems to resoundingly love. So, doing a big change like that, I'm really curious to see what the trajectory of that product is. We got Pointer 21 in the house. Matt makes a comment. Alan Ezra bring up a good point. Those case breaks get those cards out on the market for us player collectors to find. They've helped me find a lot of incredible flowers. We got baseball card curmudgeon in the house. Pointer 21 says got to watch out for the pesky fake patches. Decoy cards. My only real issue with breakers is that many get distributor prices, which can feel weird to the collector who would be fine buying a box of the cup at $450 rather than $1,000. And then he goes on to say, but it is very attractive to a wider audience that want options without breaking the bank, which is a very good thing.
One other thing I wanted to bring up when we're talking about the changes in the boxes is whether you guys think that just in today's day and age, there's not really many people collecting just the standard base set. So they're kind of moving away from, they're having less and less base cards in each pack because there's just not really any demand for the base set. Even like the new SP Authentic set, we saw less base cards and more parallels in each box. And for breaks too, right? There's more hits that they can then send out to everyone.
Yeah, I'm someone, I have no interest in base cards. If I'm opening a box, if I try to open at my hobby shop, so that way I don't have to bring the cards home to me. And then if I have them here, I usually just use them for shipping. I'll just tape a base card to the top loader just to kind of reinforce it. But for me, that's my only interest in base cards. Yeah,
I feel like that's like sacrilegious to say that about the base cards. Can't believe you're talking about putting tape on the base cards. About just you don't even want to see them.
Mitch, the foundation of our hobby is built on a base card. 1979 OPG, baby, base card.
Yeah.
No doubt.
But I think Mitch raises a good point, which is we all know there's nothing that protects a card better when being shipped than other cards aggressively taped to it. That's just physics, boys. So take heed from the master here.
I hope you're at least using painter's tape.
I got it on me. I always have to.
Scotch tape is the worst.
Yeah. Those of you that have received cards from me probably have found those taped base cards. So
yes, yeah, we all cried one tear.
I think right now I'm going through 0809 Upper Deck Ice base cards. Oh, that's killing you, Robbie.
It is killing me. It is. I have literally thousands of base cards that are completely worthless and that I should probably get rid of, but I have not yet succeeded in bringing myself to do it. So they just steal all my space.
I still just enjoy sorting them. It's cathartic, right? That's what I do.
That's what I do if I rip a box. If I rip like a
Exactly.
base heavy box, I enjoy the sorting of the new cards.
Very therapeutic.
You can give them to like a kid or a niece too, or a nephew down the line, right? You're like, oh, I have this base set, and to them it might feel like $1 million.
Yeah.
I like the way you think.
Even despite my feelings about base cards, I still, never have any shortage of them. So I got to a point where I had, just boxes of base cards, and I'm like, what am I ever gonna do with these? So I had to make that decision at some point.
If you're like me, you put them in the basement closet.
I don't have a basement.
Boxes from the 90s down there.
Carl Langer says, if they make fewer base set cards available, then that will give them more value. Base cards have fallen off for sure. I see shops desperately trying to give them away. Do you guys think we'll ever get to a point again where base cards have any value? Not including, numbered base cards like the cup.
I mean, even the cup. I bought a Brian Leach cup base card for 99 cents on eBay the other day. It's, it's crazy. I think the more and more products we get, the less people care about them. If there were less products, you might see more people collecting them.
But that's got to be true for 99% of cards in the hobby essentially have zero value, right?
Yeah.
I mean, base, insert, serial number or otherwise, right? The amount of production is so significant that I think we're going to be hard pressed to go back to the days of the 70s and 80s where you got 2 releases a year, and so there's the value has to be crammed into those base cards.
Yeah. So moving on, let's get to a topic that I don't know what you guys how you guys feel about this, but something that you kind of hear about more and more recently are digital cards, NFT type cards. Do you guys think that has any kind of staying power in the hobby, or is it a fad? What do you guys think about that?
I mean, I think it's good for the hobby, right? I mean, at the end of the day, you want to differentiate product lines. You want to find ways to get people involved, right? And so, as we talked about before, right, the folks that are opening a box of OPG probably aren't opening a box of, I don't know, SPX. Picking two things at random. Maybe they are, but you're creating different product segments. You're giving people opportunities to tap into those. The digital products give you another avenue, right? We have ePack, which for a long time was kind of that weird hybrid between digital, non-exclusive, and then hybrid into real cards. But I think with Upper Deck kind of dipping their toes in the full virtual world, it's going to be great because it's going to allow people who are interested in that to get excited about the hobby, to really dig into it, and to find another way to engage.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that it's like I think a lot of people are like me, where it's like it's just not for me. But I do think it could be beneficial, and there are definitely plenty of younger people who see that as a good thing, and that they don't really see any diminished value between the two, right? I think for a lot of us, we see the value in the physical card, and even on ePack or ComC, if you hold cards on there where you might not have them right now, but you can get them, right? I think we have that value where I think there definitely are other people who don't have that issue.
Do you guys think? Oh, go ahead, Al.
I was just going to say, I can't really speak to it too much because I have no interest in it and don't know a lot about it. I guess my only observation would be I think it would appeal to the younger collectors. Hopefully, bring more of them on board.
Yeah, I wonder if it'd be cheaper too, right? Like it would be a good price point that they can get in and kind of get a sense of the hobby first, because I think that's a lot of people struggle.
Cost.
Yeah.
So, do any of you guys? I was gonna just ask if any of you guys have any interest, or you think you guys might have an interest in the future of ever owning a digital card that is not backed up by a physical card.
No,
I think just from a display standpoint, I think it would be interesting, right? I mean, we're all in a group chat. Mitch, you kind of curate a number of group chats, and people are showing pictures of their storage setups, right? It's either you got some nice boxes, or maybe you got some binders, or maybe you got a couple on the desk somewhere, right? But other than that, there's just not a lot. Some people have some very beautiful cases. I want to give them credit for that. But by and large, the opportunities to display the cards are I don't know, they feel so antiquated, so 19th century, right? If I could have a really nice digital display on a tasteful flat screen that had like some nice black matting behind it or something, I could absolutely see wanting to display some higher end exclusive cards. I think that would be interesting. And I think that, a lot of what we're seeing right now with digital art and kind of the initial craze around NFTs is going to bring a lot of energy and dollars into that space. And so I could absolutely, see a world where you go over to somebody's house and in their man cave or even in some common area, they have a nice digital display, and on it is some piece of art, be it a hockey card or otherwise, that's individually unique, one of one, if you will, and may hold a ton of value, but is something that they're able to display a little bit more freely than their actual card.
Yeah. So I use something called Book Creator. I'm sure most of you probably haven't heard of it, but it allows me to create pages that I can print out then on glossy paper or whatever I want to do with it, put it into binders, and I do sets. So if I have a set of 8 cards or something, I'll make up a page in Book Creator, print it out on that shiny paper, and then I can either frame it or I can put it in a binder.
That's an interesting approach. I definitely never heard of that, but that's an interesting approach. I think that for me personally, a lot of the joy of the cards is like tangible, like holding the physical cards. I run into problems. Mitch, I know you're the police on this, but with the autographs, the inner turmoil of the resisting the urge to display my autograph cards in a not safe environment. But I don't know, for me, a lot of it's about having the cards in hand. I don't even like stuff like people do these days, like the vaulting, where you vault the card and there's a physical card, but it's not in your hand. I don't know. I don't have anything that would be like a big financial concern that I would need that. But like, I don't know. For me, I think I could maybe come around to the picture a little bit. But if I'm displaying it in my house, I think it has to be the physical card all the way.
The one really, really good benefit that I've found just from EPAC, in this way it correlates to digital cards, is the ability to trade is just unbelievable. It's so much better, right? And like, it just, everything is centralized. There's no shipping. There's no issues of whether it's real or not. And it just makes everything like that so much easier. And I think that we're seeing like the evolution of EPAC and stuff that's hopefully making trading easier. I don't know how much trading you guys do. It's, even though I don't do as much as I'd like, it's always my favorite thing to do and try to do. So if that comes with the digital landscape growing, I think it could be a huge benefit for that. And then making connections and stuff like that as well.
Yeah, I think EPAC is really, to me, it's a smart, efficient direction to go in for card releases. Where do you guys feel, in terms of the current split between EPAC and physical releases for Upper Deck? Do you guys feel like there should be more EPAC? There's too much EPAC. I know a lot of people, when they see a huge product hit come out of EPAC, they get upset that card was not put into a physical box. What do you guys think about that?
I mean, I think my big issue, it comes with like the more rare cards, right? There might just be people that you can never contact about it, and it's like, it's such a tease. You've seen, like, I know that person has that card, and they don't even use it. This account is not active. But then again, there are probably the same amount of cards that are just sitting in someone's box that isn't on the internet and stuff like that. In terms of like the split, I personally haven't had much of an issue. The products that I've looked on, it's still the majority in person, but it is nice to have some, and then that will flow into ComC, and it gives you a couple different places to get prices.
Yeah, that interface is actually very seamless, and that's impressive. That Upper Deck's been able to really foster that relationship and strengthen that relationship with ComC. Because it's awesome to see, I don't know, your speckled rainbow, your other cards that you have to assemble digitally and then bring them forward in the physical world. It's nice that there's such a seamless interface for that.
This made me think of a question. It might be kind of morbid, but does Upper Deck, have a stated policy on what happens to those cards? Like, say the person that owns the cards passes away, are the cards, I mean, they're not going to just hold the cards forever. And they probably don't have a way of getting it to their estate, or, like, there might not be enough value there. But, what happens to these cards? Does anyone know?
I don't know.
Mitch, Mitch, you're an attorney and you didn't read the fine print? Come on, buddy.
I don't use EPAC.
I'm sure it's buried in paragraph 26D.
Yeah, I know a lot of people. I've seen that brought up plenty of times in the groups of like, there should be I get it from both sides. They're like, oh, if it's not touched within this amount of time, if you don't sign into your account within 5 years, all your cards are, something is done with them. I don't know what the right answer is, whether they're donated, whether they're, whatever the answer is to get them back into the hobby. But as far as I've seen from threads where people have discussed, there is not people, or people don't know what happens when someone passes away or they just are inactive.
Yeah, so this is going to make me want to go into the terms and conditions and kind of do my job. See what Upper Deck has there, because how Upper Deck have no way of getting notified that someone passed away, and then they're not going to go through the work of figuring out who the estate is and getting it to them. My guess is that they probably, after a certain amount of time, get to repossess the cards, and so that might be something where people might want to steer away from EPAC if they can't actually make that a potential asset if you are to pass away. I guess you could put your login in your will, potentially, but I can't imagine very many people have ever done that. Although I know some people have spent upwards of 6 figures on EPAC. So I think it's something we should at least as a hobby be aware of how it works. Personally, I don't have any issue with a big product hits coming out of EPAC. I think if those cards could not come out of EPAC, then it wouldn't feel the same as buying a physical box, knowing that the top cards have all been saved for physical boxes. So I think to me, it kind of, it's necessary for it to work as intended, where it's just like buying a physical box. Even though I've never used it, but I have seen people even do group breaks on EPAC where they just kind of watch a guy stream it, and then they can just send all the cards out instantly.
Yeah, I mean, it's right. It's saving you on shipping to send them over to all the people in the break.
Yeah. So we got a couple more questions or comments here in the chat. So Decoy Card says, as long as they leave standard O-Pee-Chee alone, I don't care if they take out base from every other product. I know there's people that are fans of every product. They want those base cards. I think I don't think those will ever go away completely, even if they go down in the number that get put out. Name says, modern cards have definitely lost their appeal to me too. I go back and open anything from 1989-90 or 1990-91. There's not a bad card in the pack for me.
Attaboy.
Alex is Michigan dunked on for hating base. I love it. I'll stand by it. Decoy Card says, the problem with ditching base cards from the hobby is that they're typically the only cards that actually give you information about the player or their careers. And what I would say to that, and this might also be a hot take that Robbie hates, is back in the day when you opened a pack, that information was not readily available. There wasn't a spot where you could just find a player's stats. I remember, I forgot the company that did it, but they put out every year this big book that was like all the players' stats every year, like all the NHL records. And I remember as a kid, like getting my hands on those and just like burying my face in it. But now everything's online. I don't know, if there's a tremendous value to having the stats, from a base card, because we can just find it out, just from the internet. What do you guys think?
Have a little blur.
Mitch, your hot take is telling Decoy Cards to just Google it.
Just have you just need to add a QR code on the back, and you can just scan.
Yeah, great
That'd
idea.
be very cool. Yeah, I think that would be awesome.
I could settle for the middle ground of the QR code. I think I could settle for that middle ground. I don't know, something about the continuity of having, since obviously like the really old cards didn't have it, but the continuity over the last at least 70 years of that being a steady, I kind of like. But I think I could live with the QR code as long, I could settle for that.
Oh, Robbie, it goes back older than that, man. If you take a look at the C56s and C55s, the first two sets that were issued, they tell you where the guys played. Stats, one form or another, information about the players have been part of the hobby since pre-war.
Pre-war.
Do those cards have stats? I don't know.
See, that's what I was wondering, if it was like
Yeah,
a typical
and
columns.
I don't know the first year that they had stats. I know like the 51 Parker's cards are blank on the back. I'd be interested if someone in the chat maybe knows the first year like cards actually displayed stats. That'd be an interesting thing to know. I know, Al, you were about to say something.
Well, I was just going to say, I was going to add in one benefit of base cards, and that is to say that, some of the players that get a card, that might be the only card they ever get.
Yeah.
So them and their families are thrilled to have something to show they made it to the big show. I mean, there's players in there that never get autograph or patch or, different serial numbered cards. So it's still nice to celebrate them.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, name says 51 to 52 Parkers have stats on the front. Oh, I guess they do. I didn't even, I just thought nothing on the back. I think I have one handy.
As Mitch grabs that, I'm gonna hop off, boys. I gotta attend to my daughter's bedtime. It's awesome chatting with you.
Yeah, Ezra, thanks for
Ezra,
stopping
see
in.
ya.
Nice meeting you.
So I'm gonna see if we can make this visible on the screen. So here's a 51 Parker's card of Terry Sawchuk, and on the bottom, even though I've like stared at this card 100 times, I don't think I've ever even read the stats. I don't know if I can get it to show up here, but there are actually stats on the bottom of the card. It says, Detroit Red Wings 1950-51 record. Goals against 139, which is kind of a funny way of putting it. Shutouts 11. Goals against average 1.98. And then it shows he was born in Winnipeg and his birthday December 28th, 1929. And then it's card number 61 in the Parky 51-52 hockey series. So that's a really cool piece of information. Oh yeah, full screen. I forgot I could do that. So I don't know if this helps.
Kinda.
Wish it would focus. But that's actually very cool. So I'm glad Name pointed that out. So, all right, let me get out of that. All right. Now, I don't know if Matt knows a way I can make it a little smaller so we're not covering up the banner, but thank you, Name. So, I know Ezra's gone. I'd love to hear his answer to this question, but I wanted to get into Al's subject that he suggested, which is how you guys have changed your approach to collecting and what you guys think your approach in the future is going to be like, what you guys are thinking about that. So Al, since it was your topic, why don't you start us off on that?
Sure. Okay. I mean, my collecting has changed a lot. I was looking back earlier today, and I've sort of identified 3 different cycles for my own collecting experience. So from 88 to 99, before I was on eBay, I would buy from mail order and I would get boxes at the local store. Once I was on eBay from 99 up to about 2016 or so when Iggy retired, that was a daily thing for me. I was buying cards on eBay and just about only on eBay. Now, in the last 5 years, I think what's happening is a lot of us as collectors are really building our own personal networks on different platforms. So you've got, for me, the main one is Instagram, but also Facebook. I look back at my top 10 cards for 2022, and 6 out of the 10 came from contacts on Instagram. And that, for me, it means, number one, I don't have to be the guy finding it all the time. I don't have to have that daily search all the time. They're coming to me now, which is great to see, right? But I just think that with the price of boxes and just the way the landscape keeps changing for us, I think this is the way most people are starting to go, where you get into several different groups. Each group can be specific to a certain area. Like you've got that the cup that you started, Mitch, and I'm in a 1 of 1 club, and in the game and President's Choice one, and so it just makes it so much different now than it was, like I said, 5 years ago.
Yeah. That's very interesting. Thinking about my personal approach to collecting, I remember, before 2007, everything I did was just kind of, going to my card shop and just collecting for myself. So, I was able to use my dad's eBay account a little bit. If there was a card I really wanted, I would search on there. I'd be like, we got to get this card. It's so cool. And then in 2007-8, I kind of discovered the sports card forums, which were a huge new way of collecting cards, connecting to a lot of different collectors, more than anything, also just getting a tremendous amount of information about the hobby that, without the forums, you have no way of accessing. And then, I kind of recently, during COVID, I decided to get on social media for cards, and that's kind of really exploded my collection as well. And especially Instagram and Facebook. I mean, there's just almost any card that you can think of, you can track down. So thinking about the future, I feel like it's so spread out. I've always had the idea that it might behoove some hobby business to create, and it's almost like recreating forums, but like creating a social media site designed for collecting, where you can kind of just like have your whole collection and inventory like sorted in pictures. If there was, and it was just as social as Instagram or Facebook, I gotta think that there'd be a huge demand for that kind of being able to centralize, your social media for collecting specifically. Because right now it just feels very fragmented. Like it feels like it's impossible to, keep up with, checking your 20 Facebook groups and Instagram and Twitter and eBay, and then you have to keep up with PWCC and Golden and all the auction houses, and then you find out there's one at heritage auctions or classic auctions, and it's impossible. It's feeling like it's impossible to really stay on top of every avenue that there is to find cards.
But I think, Mitch, one of the things that I've really noticed lately, like I had said earlier, if you're building your own personal network, you don't have to be the eyes for all of that. You're going to get people, an example, the Aginla Monumental was just pulled the other day, the one of one. Yeah. I had 5 people within an hour sending me a picture of it and telling me where it was. So I didn't have to find it. They found it for me.
Yeah. And that's super helpful. Definitely, knowing people in the hobby and making those connections is going to do more for you than probably anything else for getting cards you need, especially if you're after rare cards.
Yeah.
Dave or Robbie, do you guys have anything else?
I was just say, for me, looking back, I think that the biggest change for me, and I've certainly got, I think me and Robbie are in a similar boat where got a lot more involved during COVID and more serious about the hobby collecting. But I think for me, the biggest change has been moving more towards sets, because I think from the past, when I was little and stuff, it was a lot of opening products and being specific players. And now there's just, not that this is any different than the 90s with all those products, but it's like, even if you have one player, they have 1,000 rookie cards, and where do you put a stop on it? Like, you're like, all right, I'm not going to include one of ones. I'm not going to include ones less than 5. You got to make a cutoff, especially working on a budget. And I think that's what's kind of made me move towards sets. And I think with more and more products coming out too, it's just like, to me, I want to open something that I can open a box or two of. Because I like to just see the product firsthand and kind of feel like I'm, opening product. And even if I don't want the card, I can trade it or I can sell it and get it out there. And it's really, I think, made me appreciate the cards more and like the players more, and learn more about all the different kinds of players. And once I did that, I still have 1 or 2 players that I collect heavily, but I've moved more towards doing the sets that I like a lot and that I think have good value and could grow, and that I could do on a year-by-year basis.
So are you collecting sets from a particular era? Like, is it from when you were young, or is it more recent?
So I do both. Like I said, my main modern one or I guess really the only modern one I work on is the Red Prism set from OPC Platinum. And then I have been doing the last few years with all just the Series 1, 2, and Extended. I pick one insert that is on the rarer side, and I try to do that set just to kind of keep up with, what's going on. And I found that they're relatively affordable. And then the other thing like I said, I mentioned before that I collect a lot of Leech. So I like to focus on sets that he's in from the 90s that I kind of do a different range of, how expensive they are, but I just find it to be like, oh, I already have this leech card and I like the look of this. Let me go find that complete set and build it out that way. Because otherwise, I was so little then, I don't have any nostalgia built up. But now it's like, oh, the nostalgia is building in me from looking at that.
Yeah, thinking, and what I collect, I've definitely become a lot more set driven. I used to be a huge player collector. Like before social media, I was like a diehard Martin Brodeur like super collector, and I just got to a point where I feel like, okay, if I have 100 different Martin Brodeur cards, I'll feel good. And then I got 200, and then I got 300, and then you realize there's 5,000, and half of them are you'll never find, or they're locked up. And I think I just got to a point where I'm like, I need some kind of end goal. Yeah, exactly.
Mm.
And then I tried to do a couple sets. The first set I ever did was 0304 Topps Pristine autographs. It's a very small set. I thought they looked really cool. They're like silver if you've never seen them. And I remember like it wasn't a hard set. The checklist, there's not any like big names on it. But when I finished it, I remember feeling like, okay, this is a sense of accomplishment I haven't felt from player collecting. And I think that kind of really sparked me to really tackle sets more. And then since then, I've completely stopped, particularly collecting Martin Brodeur. I still pick up cards that I like. But, for me, that's definitely the direction I've gone in. I'm definitely also trying to be a lot more focused in my collecting. I used to buy a lot more cards that I just thought were cool. But now I try to at least think about, does this fit in my collection? Like, does this card make sense to have with the rest of my cards? And then sometimes I just think a card is so cool, I have to have it anyway, even if it doesn't. But I try to really focus, and make sure, I don't know if that makes sense. The card needs to make sense being in my collection is kind of how I try to think about it. And sometimes I can't help myself, but that's where I'm at with it.
Mitch, what you said at the end there really, really hit home for me. That's really what it's become about for me. I have not transformed into the set collector. Haven't made that shift yet. I've kind of first was driven off that, wow, this card is cool, and now have been driven off of like experiencing different sets through player collecting, like learning about different sets purely through saved searches about, like, basically Sidney Crosby has been how I've learned most of what I've learned about hockey cards. Obviously, that only gets me 2005 to present, but I think what you said really about finding cards that fit your collection, even when you player collect, like you said, it's so easy to just end up with so much stuff that, and it could go on forever of stuff that maybe doesn't fit the exact specifications of your collection, or maybe it does, but it's not as good as some other stuff that you still have access to. It's really hard to kind of narrow that down, but I find that if I don't, then I do come across stuff I like better, and then I just have to sell the other stuff to pay for it, and that's just kind of a sad experience. So I try to be really selective from the get-go if I can.
So all this talk of set collecting got me thinking too, something I should have mentioned earlier. And I know it's not available to everybody, but we're starting to see local shows again in Calgary. There's a promoter here, Darren at Maple Leaf Sports, does 2 shows a year. So I make sure he has lots of binders. He brings binders with cards. I go for the mask cards. So Pinnacle Mask and the in the game stuff. And that's my treat to myself at the show. I'll go to his booth and I'll spend like half an hour, bring my checklist out, and I don't try and get them all at once. I might buy like 15 or 20 each show, and I'm slowly building through the years. I've got a binder just for mask cards, right? And then the Edmonton Expo not last weekend, the weekend before, here's an example of a card that I got. So I collect soccer too once in a while. This is Prophecy Fulfilled. Okay. So I just liked the look of the card. I was looking through some boxes at the expo, loved the look of it, ended up buying, I think, like 15 of them, and then came home, and a few days later I went on ComC and found some more and started bringing them in. So this is now a long-term project for me, but it's something that there's no timeline. I'll take as long as it takes, and it gives you enjoyment and keeps you in the game.
Yeah, those are super. So do you just do the Pinnacle and the ITG masks?
Anything with a mask on it, as long as it's a full mask on the card.
Yeah.
I don't need to see the goalie, just the mask.
I remember as a kid, I put together the, I think it was 1996 Donruss Elite Painted Warriors.
Oh, yeah.
I think those are out of 2,500, which was pretty rare at the time.
Yeah.
Used to have cards out of like
some
10,000.
cards like that. Some cards like that are still, they still don't pop up as much as you'd think.
Yeah. I thought those cards to me were so cool. I had a like John Van Beesbrook one was so cool to me. It was just like the whole panther head on his mask. Those are like the side profile of the mask too. Usually you get the front view, so it's a little different.
Mm-hmm.
So those are really cool. Robbie, I gotta say, we gotta take the plunge. Find a set that you like.
I've got a lot of sets I like. I think I could. I kind of think, Al, you got the right idea, at least for what would work for me, where resisting that urge to kind of go to try to like be like, okay, I'm gonna get these cards, I'm gonna complete this set. Let me go get them all. I kind of, if I can bring myself to do it, I want to follow the slow roll of building them up, because like you said, kind of keeps you in the game, which, as I said, like I'm trying to be more selective about the cards I buy. Those typically being more selective equals finding more expensive things. So staying in the game is a key part, and that's definitely good advice there.
Well, these definitely aren't expensive cards.
See, that's perfect.
I mean, the most expensive ones, I think the gold versions, some of them I'll pay like $25 for a card, but most of them are like $5.
Let's go.
So,
what are the gold ones numbered to?
I think they're out of 10.
So they're pretty hard to find, I bet.
I think, yeah.
Yeah. Matt says every collector needs to have goals to find that sense of accomplishment. I completely agree. And Al, I apologize that I'm covering your face every time I bring up a comment. And then
I'll get higher.
Yeah, a good friend Tim says I can relate with what you're saying on set collecting, Mitch. As a longtime player collector, set collecting brings a new fun feeling I had never felt before. And if you guys know Tim, he's a Red Wings fan 11 on Instagram. I've never met someone with more player collections. I mean, it seems like half the league, he's like, oh, I PC him, like he's got like 100 cards of them somehow. And then Matt says, good taste, Al.
Oh, thanks.
So, I mean, that's pretty much all I have for the bullet points I had typed up. Right? Is there anything else that you guys want to talk about as it pertains to the future of the hobby?
I think we painted a pretty good picture from a lot of different perspectives. Nothing for me. I feel like I learned a lot too, which is always great.
I'm curious to know how important eBay is to each of you still. I used to be on that every single day for hours at a time, and now I'll go for days at a time. I won't even touch it. So I'm just curious towards your future purchases and stuff. Are you moving away from eBay, or is it still a main venue for you?
For me personally, I'm still checking eBay multiple times every day. I'm refreshing my save searches constantly, and I think, I mean, it's mostly because maybe I'm just so desperate to find the cards that I want that if they pop up, I feel like because a lot of the cards I want are so rare, if they pop up, someone else might hit the buy it now before I do. So I have to be refreshing constantly to make sure I don't miss out. And I know that's probably somewhat unhealthy to be so obsessively refreshing the save searches as I am, but I have noticed this year that I'm purchasing way fewer cards on eBay than even last year or the year before. I'm just not finding the cards that I want on eBay. I'm finding them on Facebook and Instagram.
Yeah.
So I don't know if fewer people are listing cards on eBay, which I think is probably the case.
Yeah.
But I'm definitely noticing that I'm finding a lot fewer cards that I need on eBay than I used to.
Same here, Mitch. Same experience. I enjoy using eBay. I refresh the save searches. The last 6 to 12 months, I've had pretty poor luck with the stuff that I want. And it kind of makes you really grateful for the network you've built on Instagram, because it's become even more important with eBay not producing the type of stuff I want.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, even like I said, I say to myself to be very frugal in sets until I get down to the last couple players, and then I'm like, all right, like I'll pay what I need. But like I've needed a Ryan McLeod Red Prism. It should be like a $3 or $4 card, and there's been like one on eBay for 6 months and no new ones. And it's like there's 199 of these. How is that possible that another one hasn't been posted on here?
Yeah. And I think for me in Canada, it's the shipping.
Yeah, that too.
You know, the team badges for the soccer, for World Cup soccer, a lot of them are like $5 or less, but the shipping was like $15.
Yeah.
So I couldn't even touch them. There's no way I was going to pay that. So you have to find alternative places to get some of this stuff.
Yeah, I think the rest of us are all American. There's no way for us to ship a card to Canada for under like $14.50. Yeah. So it's real tough. I don't know. Hopefully, because you used to be able to do it for $4 or $5 until a couple of years ago. Reed says there is something very thrilling of finding a card on eBay you've been after for a long time. But is that specific to eBay? Is it more thrilling to find it on eBay than on Facebook or Instagram? I don't know.
Well, do you guys, when you're searching for stuff on Facebook, maybe I'm just terrible at it. I feel like I search and I just like the functionality just doesn't work for me. Like I feel like I have such a poor time trying to find the things, especially in like the huge groups. It's like you can't sift through all of that, and the searching is just not as good.
I think Facebook's search functionality is just abysmal. If you can find something that way, then you've really lucked out.
So
I don't use the search thing. I in about 6 or 7 groups, and I just go to those groups all the time and look and see what the recent stuff is, and I have my contacts. That's all I do.
But then also on eBay, you get the fake outs where it's like you got a new hit on your search and it's not even anything related to it.
I get stuff that says new Aginla printing plate, and I get all excited because they're one of ones, right? And I go in, and it's a card. It's not even a printing plate. So,
a lot of people manipulate the
searches.
You can put tags that aren't even in the title so that it'll pop up. Even if it has nothing to do with the card, which is against the eBay's rules, but they never seem to care.
When I'm in a bad mood, I report it. I don't think it does anything, but because I still see the card there. But
decoy card says, I don't check eBay much myself, but saved search notifications are great if you're very selective or if the cards don't pop up much. Reed says, I think it's more thrilling because I'm so persistent looking on save searches. I think you click that button that shows that a new thing popped up and it's something you need that might be a little bit more gratifying. And I think we all agree on this. All right, fellas. Well, I think we've had a really good discussion here about the future of hockey cards. And thank you to everyone who stopped by in the chat to hang out. I think this is a really good discussion. We intended to have next week's topic already, but we definitely fell behind the ball a little bit on that one. So we will be posting that in the next day or two, what that topic will be and who's going to be on that show. But big thanks to David, Robbie, Alan, and Ezra, who was here earlier, for all stopping by and hanging out and sharing with us what they think about the future of hockey cards. So with that, thank you all for stopping by, and we're here every Wednesday, 9:00 Eastern, 6:00 Pacific, and we're trying to do pretty much a new cast each episode. And we're really excited for how it's going so far. So thanks everyone for stopping by, and this show is over.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Mitch.